Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 549 of the Juicebox Podcast. You are going to enjoy today's show. I interviewed Katy while she was pretty pregnant. Today, she has a baby. At the end of the episode, I'll tell you more about that baby. For now, remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Also remember that you should consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. This one's fun. I remember we did this with the video on, which I don't often do. I remember Katy saying she hadn't had much interaction with adults, and we had a really good time chatting. Oh, and she's living in Slovenia right now, which sounded exotic to me. Of course, I am a person who, when I hear you live in Canada, imagines you're being killed by a bear, so I don't have a world traveler view. As I reflect on what I've just said, I don't even know if I count as an adult, so maybe she hadn't had any contact with adults. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Contour Next One blood glucose meter. I want you to go to contournext.com/juicebox to learn more about the most accurate blood glucose meter that I've ever used. The show is also sponsored today by Touched by Type 1. Find out more about them at them. Did I not say them correctly? Find out more about them at touchedbytype1.org or on their Facebook or Instagram pages.
My name is Katy. I'm 32 years old. I'm type 1 diabetic, and I'm 7 months pregnant. And now I'm currently living in Slovenia.
Nice. Okay. So, Katy, when you think, you're turning your head, and so you're like, hey, I'm Katy. I'm 32 years old.
Okay. The microphone isn't as good. I'll just hold it. Is this better?
Wow, that's amazing. If you feel like doing that the whole time, definitely do that. But leave that all in. We'll leave your microphone training in the episode. So, how old did you say you were?
32.
And you were diagnosed when?
When I was 11.
11.
So
that's
2000.
21 years ago.
Yeah.
You see how quickly I did that? Were you impressed at all?
Amazing.
No, you weren't. I was. I think that's the problem, is that I was like, that's 21 years ago. And then this little like confetti pops off of my head. It's like you did it. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know why my brain doesn't grasp math the way it should. Anyway.
Well, this is fairly simple math, right? If it's 2021, but still.
Oh, I know what you're saying, but I'm just impressed that because you don't. All right, look, not to get on a sideline, but my brain takes out a chalkboard and I can visually see your age, and then that happened, and then it goes, oh, you just take the one off, and then there's 2 here, so that's 20, and then that's 1. And it literally happens like that in my head, which is why I'm not good at geometry and algebra and other things, because I think I would need more of a grasp of math than that to get through that stuff. But
It just sounds like you're kind of a visual person.
You think so? I don't know. Yeah. You're probably right. Okay. Long time then is the answer. You're originally from California?
Yes. Originally from originally from the Bay Area. And then I grew up in the Sierra Nevada foothills.
Oh, that sounds lovely. Was it?
Yeah. Yeah. I was in a small town, really beautiful.
Right. That's amazing.
Kind of close to Tahoe-ish.
But you don't live there anymore.
No.
Why
Currently,
is that?
I live in Slovenia, in the capital city.
Say that one more time for people.
Currently, I live in Slovenia. It's in Europe. It's between Italy and Croatia and Austria, kind of.
And nowhere near the foothills in California.
We have some Alps nearby.
How did you end up there?
My husband is a Slovenian guy, so he was doing an internship in California and Silicon Valley when we met about 8 years ago. And now we've been living here for about 1.5 years.
And he said, I have to go home. And you were like, I'll go with you. How long have you been married?
We've been married about 3 years, I think.
So he springs this on you after you're trapped. Is that what you're saying?
No, I actually wanted to, I don't know. This was always something that we kind of planned on. It was just a matter of the timing.
Gotcha. Well, that's interesting. That's really cool. I mean, it's adventurous at the very least it would have been adventurous to move to Arizona, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you don't know me, but it's very adventurous for me also. I'm not a huge risk taker by nature. So.
That's pretty cool. And it sounds like it's going okay, except for before we started recording, the mail system in Slovenia, not good. We don't like it. We're upset with the mail system.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. So so you've got diabetes as a child. You grow up with type 1 being on your parents' situation. I imagine you went to college and then got a job. You're on your own, and then you leave the country. Before we dive into why you're on the show, I kind of want to start off with how that changes. Like, what happens when you leave one country and go to another? How do you manage all that?
The diabetes component, or
like
just everything?
Getting your stuff, like getting your diabetes tech and like all that.
Yeah, that was kind of a scary aspect. But it turned out to not be as difficult as I thought it was going to be. The hardest part was just making sure I would have enough supplies in this interim period before I had insurance over here.
Okay.
But once you have insurance over here, which you get as soon as you are registered as a resident, even if you're a temporary resident, then you are covered. So it's not a problem anymore.
Wow.
And it's like a universal healthcare system. So it's really a lot nicer than the situation in the US. But I did stockpile supplies before coming. So I planned to have, I think I had between 3 and 6 months of supplies for everything. It wasn't so crazy because I've had doctors in the US also when I did a 3-month trip to Southeast Asia, and I did a 3-month trip around the US, and doctors are willing to help you out to cover an extra supply
that gap,
load during this kind of thing. Did
you end up needing all of it?
Sorry?
Did you really end up needing all that backlog that you had, or did it turn out to be more than you?
I was happy that I had as much as I did. I didn't use it all up, but it was not a lot of extra wiggle room by the time the insurance came through. There was some bureaucracy, and I will say it's really helpful to have my husband be somebody who speaks Slovenian to help me navigate the system. Because if I were just an American speaking English and trying to do all the things.
Excuse me 1 second. This never happens. Hello? I'm recording. What's up? No, I'm not kidding you. Wait, you left something in here? This is funny. Hold on 1 second.
No problem.
What are you saying? You don't have that on the calendar. So how much it is on the calendar. What's in here? I need all of this. My class. Okay. Good luck. You need to put this on the calendar. It's on the calendar. Goodbye. So not, hey, I'm sorry, this isn't on the calendar, but I'm like, it is on the calendar. No, it's not. That's what she just said to me. Like, it was almost like, I'm not bothering you because this isn't on the calendar. And I was like, yeah, but it is. I not only that,
understand that.
Well, not only that, 45 minutes ago, she was in here and I was like, hey, I got to record soon. And she was like, okay.
Okay, well then that's less understandable.
Yeah, it's much less. That was very interesting. That's like literally no one's ever walked in here while I was doing this before. That was the first time that's ever happened. I'm sorry. I wonder if you were to have gotten there and didn't have stuff, if you didn't prep as well as you did, would there have been a way for you to get what you needed?
Yeah, I think it wouldn't have been impossible. I think I could have. They have a universal healthcare system, which is great for kind of covering everybody. But I think I could have paid out of pocket to see a private doctor and just gotten a prescription and then paid out of pocket for insulin. And
gotcha.
It might have been a difficult. I might not have been able to get I don't know if I would have been able to get, because I have a continuous glucose monitor and an insulin pump. And I'm not sure if it might have been more difficult to get prescriptions for those items, but at least for kind of like the getting by, I'm almost positive it would have been still okay.
What if you would have met a boy who is from a country where your stuff's not for sale? Like if your pump and your CGM weren't available wherever he was from, how would you have felt about that, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really gone down that path.
Yeah, because there are places all over the world that, you can't get an Omnipod or you can't get Dexcom at, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're using.
I mean, I'm a relatively recent convert to using a CGM in the scheme of things. I actually was offered one, and I used so I have a Medtronic insulin pump, the 670G, but I don't use the closed loop system. And then I have a Dexcom CGM. And I tried the MiniMed CGM maybe 5 years ago or so, 6 maybe. They were kind of encouraging me to try, not with the 670G, but with the old Medtronic pump that they had. And I just hated it. I felt like it was inaccurate. It was beeping all the time, driving me really crazy. And so I kind of thought all CGMs suck. And so
I don't know.
Needless to say.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I don't know one person that used that original Medtronic CGM and then was like, this thing was great.
I used it for less than a week, I think, before it was like, nope, this isn't for me. My blood sugars are fine.
I think in fairness too, not that we need to defend anybody, but being the first through the door is hard. Like the first person to be like, we're going to try a thing, and then you're like, this doesn't work as well as I need it to. It's tough. Somebody's got to blaze a trail, and that's not usually, it's not usually a happy story when you're trailblazing. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So you got a little turned off to it for a while?
Sorry?
You were a little turned off to it for a while then.
Yeah. But then, I kept hearing people talk about the Dexcom. Even before I got the Medtronic CGM, people were talking about how much they love the Dexcom.
Yeah.
But I just kind of thought it can't be that different from the Medtronic. It's all kind of the same. And so I didn't use another one for maybe 3 or 4 years after that.
But now you are.
And then actually, I think only 2.5 years ago or so, my doctor that I only had him for 1 or 2 appointments. He was like, why are you not on a CGM? Like, CGMs are so great. I'm writing you a prescription. Just go get one right now. This Dexcom, It's covered by your insurance anyway. And it really has changed my life. So if you ask me now, I would really prioritize being able to get a CGM is the short answer.
I gotcha. So it was easier to get you to Slovenia than it was to get you a CGM.
Yeah. Definitely.
That's hilarious. So in the note that you wrote me, you said that for a very long part of your life, I want you to really kind of dig in and explain this concept to me that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you minimized diabetes or tried to keep it in the background. I want your words for it, but I want to understand how you treated it in that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think I was never, I've heard on I've listened now to quite a few of the podcasts. Now I'm listening to them like a couple times a week, every week. And I've heard a lot of people say maybe they were embarrassed or ashamed. And I think I didn't really feel that way, but I just really didn't want my identity to be associated with diabetes. Like it felt like a stereotype, I guess, which is kind of crazy now to think about. But so I definitely didn't bring it up unless somebody asked. And then if somebody did ask, I always was happy to talk about it.
Yeah.
But
it's funny,
especially in high school.
I always think of it as I'm trying to really listen to people and dig through what they're saying. And I wonder sometimes if that idea of like, it wasn't a big deal to me, I just didn't want to have it attached to me, is a fear reframed Like you must feel like that's what's going to happen, or you wouldn't be concerned about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I thought it definitely was coming from a place of fear. I think I thought people would maybe take pity on me or think of me as more vulnerable or feel like they couldn't just act normally around me.
Did you have that fear about yourself, that you were that person?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I feel like I always felt pretty confident about who I was, but I got it when I was 11. So, and I also changed schools the same year. So I switched from a private, small, artsy, dinky school to a public school because my dad wanted a better math program in 6th grade. And I was like, for that first year, I was giving myself insulin injections because you had to give yourself insulin injections for a year before they'd let you get an insulin pump.
Right.
And so I was switching to this new big school where I didn't know anybody. And I was the kid who was like stabbing themselves with needles at lunchtime. And I just, at first I was really worried. And then I kind of realized that maybe it's kind of a conversation starter. And so then I kind of thought, oh, it's like a joke. I can make a joke out of it. People will be like, "Oh, are you doing cocaine?" Or
yes, these children really understand the cocaine process. Yes,
exactly. And so, it actually helped me to make. In the end, it helped me to make some friends in a way.
Gotcha. But no, I don't not understand, and I don't think anybody handles anything wrong. You know what I mean? Like I think whatever works for you. I'm just super interested in like that idea of I don't want people to see because then they attach me to it, because I think that's obvious. I think people make snap decisions about stuff. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing, but I wonder about the juxtaposition to the people who really legit don't care. And and they're not like, it's not like aggro, like don't care. They really don't care. You know what I mean? You know the difference between like people who say they don't care, but that's just a position they're taking, and the people who really do just drift through things. I definitely feel like I'm more on that side of the spectrum as I've aged. But I never tried to hide it. I was always checking my blood sugars in class. It wasn't like I was trying to minimize it in that way. Yeah.
It's just socially with friends. I would never be like, hold on a second, I'm counting my carbs, like don't interrupt me, like
let us stop talking about Boys to Men for 5 seconds while I go over how many grapes are in this bag. And sometimes maybe I would have needed, that minute, but I just didn't bring it up, bring it up. No, it makes sense to me. And your management's, I mean, from what you shared with me, has always been pretty stable, right? Like your A1Cs and things like that.
Yeah, I definitely gradually, like you've kind of talked in some of the episodes about how people kind of get complacent and don't really notice a slight drift. And so I did notice, I think I was pretty happy actually to get the CGM, because maybe prior to getting it, the last couple of years, I was starting to get more regular A1Cs in the mid to high 7s occasionally.
Okay.
And that was higher than I ever used to get. I was always kind of in the 6s and the low 7s. And so I was kind of like, maybe and also one of my doctors referred to me as uncontrolled diabetic on a note. And she said it was in order to be able to get better access for prescriptions of some sort. I can't remember what the context was, but it kind of just freaked me out reading.
Yeah.
Like, even if it was her exaggerating for the sake of prescriptions.
Right. Let me just call you a mass murderer for a second, but don't worry, it's just to get your taxes lowered. And you're like, I'm not comfortable with that.
Like, oh God, am I anywhere close to an uncontrolled? And maybe I kind of felt like maybe I was getting there a little bit. I was just a little too comfortable with being in the 200s from time to time.
Yeah. Well, it does occur to me that if the doctor was willing to say it, the numbers must have at least backed it up enough that they thought they
somebody
could get away with it.
She wasn't like putting her license on the line by writing this.
It's not like you had a 5.2 A1C and she's like, this person's out of control, you know, because somebody would have said, no, they're not. And that would have been that. Did you have crazy lows or no? Was your variability pretty stable?
I mean, okay, so now that I've been pregnant and on the CGM, I mean, it's all, it's definitely all relative, because looking at what my blood sugars are like now and how stable they are now and kind of the range that they're in now and have been for almost a year, I would say that there was way too much variability then.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've heard other people talking. I think I was kind of like not really going below 40 or 50 very often or ever, and not really going above 250 or kind of the high 200s often or ever. But that's still, that's a fairly good range.
Yeah.
You know, like that's not really the healthy range.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Like talk about before the CGM, before you could really see it, that all just seemed okay, right? Like you weren't sitting around thinking like, oh, I have a real problem here, I have to get on top of it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was kind of like, I should sort of I should hone in on my control a little bit, get back to where I was when I was first diagnosed. But then it just kind of, never took priority.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like your house is on fire and your response is, I got to make sure my smoke detector batteries are okay. Instead of, we should put water on this. And it because it's not, it doesn't feel imminent. Is that why?
I don't know. I wasn't ever, no, I don't think that's why exactly. Okay. I wasn't really aware. Like I wasn't really kind of looking into more current research and more current ideas about it. Like I was diagnosed when I was 11 and I was really up to date for at least, 5 or 10 years after that point, kind of like paying attention to JDRF and really had a great relationship with my endocrinologist and finding out the latest. And then somewhere along the way, I was just kind of doing my own thing, doing jobs separate from it. And diabetes was just becoming kind of a smaller and smaller part of my life. And so I think I kind of got trained in a little bit more of an old school mindset and didn't totally adjust my thinking as people were realizing more and more how harmful the high blood sugars over time can be. And
then you wake up one day and you're like, this is how I do it. And there's this kind of like part of the
really
world that's
pregnancy woke me up, but then kind of listening to your podcast and doing my own research outside of that and reading some books, it's been interesting, kind of realizing how doable it is to have an overall lower range and a more consistent range.
Well,
and how healthy it is.
Yeah. Well, let's find out about that a little bit and what you figured out. So, did you make the baby on purpose or was it a surprise? The next time you buy a car or a sofa or a house or a pair of shoes, don't even bother shopping for those things. Just go to your doctor's office and say, I need a pair of sneakers. Just give me whichever pair you want. Doc, pick out my sofa for me. Where do you think I should live? Nurse practitioner? That's not how things work. But you let those people give you a blood glucose meter and you never asked, are there other options? Does this one even work? Why did you do that? I'm going to guess you were overwhelmed, you didn't know what you were doing, and you thought, oh, this is a blood glucose meter. Why would you think there were other ones? Happened to me. Somebody gave us insulin, and I thought this was insulin, but now Arden uses a different insulin because I looked into it, and I learned, and I made a more informed choice. You can do that with your blood glucose meter. If I was you, I would start at contournext.com/juicebox and look at the Contour Next One blood glucose meter. See what I'm getting at here? This is an ad. And I'm trying to get you to go to a link. And you're going to do it or you're not going to. But if I was you, I would. And I'm not just saying that because someone's paying me. This is the meter that my daughter uses. It is absolutely the most accurate and easy to use meter that she's ever had, that I've ever held. It has second chance test strips, so you don't waste a strip if you don't get enough blood the first time. It has a super bright light for nighttime viewing, a screen that is easy to read and use. It fits nicely in your hand or in your pocket or in your purse. And it's really, 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 really accurate. I don't know what else you'd want. So you should check it out. contournext.com/juicebox. They also have a test strip savings program that might be valuable to you. And the supplies could end up being cheaper in cash than you're even paying now through your insurance for another meter. I don't know, but that's where you find out. contournext.com/juicebox. It is a super informative and easy to use website that will give you all of the answers you need. Do you wish that your meter was connected to an app so that all of your data could be saved in one place for later viewing? If you wish that, wish comes true. The Contour Next One blood glucose meter does that. But if you don't want to use the app, the meter works just as well without it. Links in the show notes, links at juiceboxpodcast.com, contournext.com/juicebox. And while you're out on the internet tooling around, getting yourself a new amazing meter, also check out touchedbytype1.org. Super simple, right? touchedbytype1.org. You can do that. Let me remind you here too. Have you filled out the survey for the T1D Exchange? T1DExchange.org/juicebox. Let's get back to Katy.
It was on purpose.
Good for you. Look at you. Your parents would be thrilled.
Yeah, I had an IUD, so it was like you have to be pretty conscientious.
You can't. It's tough to get around those.
Yeah.
Well, that's lovely. So you decided to make a family, and I am assuming you're staying where you're at now, right? Like this is, or maybe not.
Not forever. Okay. We're actually going to be moving back to California sometime in the next 1 to 2 years.
Okay.
Is the plan.
Is there a language barrier for you? Are you like by yourself there? Like staring?
No, it's not that. Everybody speaks English pretty much. If they're under kind of the age of 40 or 50, they know pretty good English. Mm-hmm. And then it's a bit of a crapshoot depending on who you're talking to and where you're located for kind of the older generation and also the smaller towns outside of the capital city.
How much like right around like the area you live where you do what you do, shop and do stuff like that? Like do people like, do they look at you and go, that girl's the American girl that I told you about? Like is it that odd or no? Yeah, I think to some extent. I'm studying Slovenian and I'm learning it, and I try to speak Slovenian as often as I can. Right.
But it's a really complicated language with cases. It's kind of most similar to Russian if you have to make a comparison. And
it's not
I'm not
easy.
good.
Yeah, you're not good. Not good at it. I just really imagine you wandering down the street and they're like, look, there she is. I told you there was one here. There she is. And she's pregnant.
It's not helping. It's not helping my case that I'm pregnant. And I'm really large. Even though I'm only 7 months pregnant, my baby is going to be really large. Okay. And I look already like I could be about to give birth. So like the white, I mean, I guess everybody's white here, but like the cute American super pregnant lady kind of stands out.
She showed up and then she started making babies. So if it makes you feel better, the portion of you that I can see does not look pregnant at all. So
great.
You're doing great. Your top third is rocking. I honestly, when you popped up and I could see you, that was my first thought. I'm like, I thought she was going to be pregnant. Like that's literally what I thought when you came on the camera, and I was like, oh, all right, well, good. Anyway,
I'll stand up later so you can see because it's amazing.
It's amazing. You're like two people, just like yeah. You ever see those people walking around who look like they were made out of spare parts? Like I always imagine, the end of the day, whoever's putting people together is like, well, we have a top half left and a bottom half left, but they don't go together, and they're just like, hell, let's get out of here, and they stick them together and leave. Like, I wonder if that's not what's going to happen, if you're just going to stand up and look like two different people.
I used to do that with my gummy bears. I'd like chew off the head of one color and the bottom of another and glue them together.
I don't understand people who don't do that. What do you think of that? That also works with gumdrops and other such things. Like, you know how sometimes like a red gumdrop and an orange gumdrop taste nice together, but you don't want two gumdrops? You split them in half. And then you have, I don't know who doesn't do that. If anyone listening doesn't do that, you're making a huge mistake. That's all I know. Do you ever turn the gummy bears backwards so they're like monsters?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
My God.
All kinds of Frankenstein gummy bears.
Well, your kid's in for a lovely upbringing. I think you're super excited to have you. Do you know what kind of baby it's going to be?
Yeah, he's a boy.
Oh, congratulations.
I am happy no matter what if he's healthy. But my family is heavily boy filled already. Oh. So I was kind of hoping for a girl.
Well, don't worry. I'm sure the fifth one will be a girl.
Yeah, I'm not having that.
People who get stuck in your situation are always just like searching, like, oh, we're going to do it one more time. They don't even want to anymore. Like they're like, do you want to have another baby? No, but we'll do it. You don't think you're having a bunch of kids?
No way. I know. I do know. And actually, once you have, I forget what the statistic was exactly, but once you have 2 or possibly 3 of the same sex, then your statistical likelihood of having the opposite sex for the 3rd or 4th goes way down. Oh. So
like this is just the soup you guys are comes out this way.
Yeah, kind of. Like there's some genetic components and environmental components, and some people are more prone to the environment that's good for girls or boys. So if you have this evidence backing it up already that you have these 2 boys or whatever,
then you don't need to
don't go for it again if you're really hoping for it.
Well, I don't want to get too far off track, but a lot of boys in your family. Is there a lot of type 1 in your family?
There's no history of any autoimmune conditions in my family that I'm aware of.
It's just you.
Just me.
Literally, like you don't have a grandma that looks tired all the time or anything like that?
So my grandparents have all passed away. And I do know that, people weren't as aware of kind of what were the different complications that were happening to people. So it's possible that there has been some genetic history that I'm not aware of for great grandparents or grandparents.
Right. It's just interesting that on my wife's side of the family, the autoimmune stuff stays with the women.
Really?
Mostly. But very recently, we think my son might have Hashimoto's. So maybe not. So I don't know. Do you have any other ones or just type 1 you only get?
Just type 1. Oh. Yeah. My godmother has Hashimoto's, so I'm just starting to learn about that, but we're not related.
It's so funny when you said just type 1, my inclination was to make a joke, and the joke that popped into my head, I actually stopped from coming out, which is a real triumph for me. It's not going to stop me from saying it now. I just wanted you to know that I didn't mean it. But when I said, did you have just 1? You said, no, just 1. I was going to go, loser. I don't know why. Kind of a type 1 can't get another autoimmune disease.
Yeah, well, there's still time,
Don't give up. That's a good attitude to have.
I was listening to one of your podcasts about TrialNet, and I forwarded it because I have 4 brothers. So I forwarded it to my parents and my brothers, and I have 5 nephews and a niece. And so I was just thinking, even though some of my brothers have kind of aged out, some of them are still kind of in the range where it would really help them to potentially get tested.
Yeah. That's such an interesting concept about wanting to know or not wanting to know. I think I know. It's funny. I think I know what side of it I'm on until you really start applying it. Well, I guess I should say this. Cole was tested when he was 12 and he didn't have any antibodies, right? And when the Hashimoto's came up around, he's almost 21, your first inclination was should we test him again for diabetes antibodies? So I talked to the person I know at TrialNet, and I said, should we do this again? And they said, if you don't have antibodies the first time, they don't even retest for it after that. It's incredibly unlikely. And it made me feel good Now,
Yeah.
If he had them back then, I guess we would retest now, and then at least you'd know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so.
And it's really interesting because I feel my first thought was, this is amazing. I think everyone in my family will want to do it. I just thought automatically, like, this is
Feels
like information
obvious.
is power, and there will be support for you if you have anything. Plus, there's this new studies for prevention. Potentially, you could prevent it even for some years. This is absolutely worth knowing. And I don't think a single brother has acted on it at all, or even responded, which is very unlike my family. So
like, they're just ignoring you completely. They're like, we're going to pretend this text didn't come.
Okay. In their defense, it is like the season of COVID, and it's a crazy year, and everyone's children are doing school from home, and it's not really a good time to add on some other potential health crisis. But
it would have been neat to hear, like, thank you, I'll think about this. They were just like, I don't
they
need
all
one
have
more
little children, so I just kind of cut them slack.
Well, I think that's a good look into why people don't do it sometimes, is that it just feels like when am I going to do that? Like, there's so much going on already. Is your life slower there than it was in California? Like, and I don't mean like in a bad way. I mean, is it more paced and comfortable?
For me, it is. I'm a little bit limited professionally here because I'm not speaking the language fluently. So in California, I'm an occupational therapist, and here I'm not able to work as an occupational therapist unless I can pass this sort of language competency proficiency level. And so now I'm working as a native English speaker in a kindergarten. Only part-time because of pregnancy and everything. And just kind of teaching on the side, taking some Slovenian classes, but my life has definitely slowed down.
Did that help with your type 1, do you think? Did that give you more? I was wondering if that helped with your management. Like, does it help to not be rushing so much?
Yes. Yeah. And so just to bring up kind of the differences in the Slovenian healthcare system and the US healthcare system a little, it is really amazing. If you are type 1 diabetic over here, you can have the entire 9 months of pregnancy as paid sick leave. And then you get a year of maternity leave after that.
So a year and 9 months if you're pregnant, you have type 1.
And potentially you split that year with your husband, so he could have 3 months and you could take 9 months, something like that. But
so the family gets a year and 9 months to use the way they want to. Wow. How much of it did you keep teaching? Are you teaching still, but just not as much?
So I am still teaching now, but it's really very, very part-time. And my I would work at a Montessori kindergarten, and it's very sort of family oriented, and they're just basically letting me say how many hours I want to work.
Wow.
And
that's lovely.
It's great, actually.
I not that I'm trying to game the system, but my mind wonders, say you wanted to work your first 7 months of your pregnancy. Could you take off a year and 7 months after you have the baby? Like, can you use the 9 months is for during the
It's a different kind of thing. You have to get the doctor to sort of sign off saying that you are in fact type 1 diabetic and pregnant during this time. And then it is still kind of a headache in terms of the paperwork to get reimbursement. And something in favor of living in California over Slovenia is that the salaries in general are much, much higher in California compared with here.
So the point is, it's not that expensive to pay you while you're not working to begin with. Gotcha. No, that makes sense too. I thought for sure, I was like, oh, this is going to be one of these situations. And it kind of is the way what you did here at home. When you meet somebody who's an immigrant, they're like, I used to be a doctor and now I work at a grocery store, like that kind of feeling. And not that either of those professions are better than the other, but I can't get a job. I can't even I have to get a job where, I can come in and learn the job on, while I'm working. It's not like you're even showing up with any information prior to background.
Well, and I mean, I was thinking if I lived here longer, which we're sort of hoping to potentially live here again after we move back to California for some years, then come back to Slovenia for some years. And potentially I could, once I kind of finish the language learning to a certain extent, I could work. So I started volunteering here as an occupational therapist. And I will say also that the environment that I was volunteering at was amazing compared with some of the environments that I've volunteered at or worked at in the US as an occupational therapist in terms of resources and tools and kind of ideology. It was really like, it would be wonderful to work here.
So you just have to, got to learn some more words and phrases. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to see that there's a level of the competency that they're not willing to sink below. That really is kind of great. I bet you'll be able to do it. Don't you think?
It's slow, but I've been working for a couple years, so little by little.
Yeah. I mean, Melania Trump was the first lady, so you should be able to be an occupational therapist in Slovenia, I think. You seem smarter than her, if I'm just saying. So I think you can do it.
All of the Slovenians learn English automatically, basically starting in kindergarten.
Okay.
And then they usually start learning an additional language like German or something like this as they progress through school. So most adults, as they finished high school, speak something close to 3 languages, and many speak more.
It's so messed up here because the way they teach a second language to kids around here is you just have to pass the test. You don't have to speak it. So, I took 3 years of French. I don't know a word of French. My son took Spanish forever. Like, I think he was like 2 classes away from having it as a minor in college. Can't speak Spanish at all. And my daughter said that her French teacher is being yelled at by her. This is one of these Zoom like things you learn during Zoom. She's like, my French teacher's being yelled at by her Russian parents, and we're watching movies. I'm like, what now? Say it again. She said, we're going to watch a movie with, in French. And then the day comes and she's like, I couldn't find this movie in French. So you're just watching, Finding Nemo. My 11th grader is watching Finding Nemo at 10 o'clock in the morning. And she's like, I'm like, they're not teaching. She goes, no, she's busy getting yelled at by her parents. Yay, education.
That all feels very familiar. I actually really liked my French teacher in high school, but we definitely watched Finding Nemo in French. And it is definitely true that I took 3 years of French in high school and 3 years of French in college, and I don't speak French now as an adult.
I don't know how we mess stuff up so much. Like, everyone's so focused on just like, you have to have a good grade so you can get your next thing. You know, I want a good grade in high school so some good college will take me. I want a good grade in college so I can get some job. Meanwhile, nobody knows what they're doing in high school. Nobody knows what they're doing in college, and they get their job and they don't know what they're doing either. And everyone's just trying to pretend their way through to retirement.
I mean, I think it would be different if I had moved to Quebec or something and been in a place where they're speaking French, it would have sunk in. But now it's been a decade since I ever even tried to speak French, and it's just gone.
Yeah. Arden asked me one time, she's like, what do you remember about French? And I was like, I think neuf means 9.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I got. Sorry, madame. I don't have much of it at all. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so you, with your, I think we understand that you, prior to CGM, were in the mid 6s, drifting into the 7s sometimes, but probably had some more variability than you wanted to. You have a CGM. Now you can see it. How do you get yourself where you want to be with your A1C and your variability prior to pregnancy, or does the pregnancy shock you into doing it? How did that go?
Yeah, I guess I did get close. It was kind of gradual. I was talking about the idea of trying to get pregnant, but not really getting serious about it for maybe a year before we started trying. And my doctors were saying, yeah, you need to get your A1C below a 6. And that felt pretty daunting. I can remember thinking, I don't know if I've ever been below a 6. And that was actually when I got the CGM, the Dexcom, because that was, about a year before we were really thinking about pregnancy. And I was thinking, I'm going to need to wear one during pregnancy anyway, so I better start getting used to it now. And then, so I think prior to conception, I was really more like right around the 6 level.
Okay.
Maybe 6.1 or 6.0, something
but even
like
just that like idea of moving it down like a quarter of a point or half a point seemed impossible.
No, but prior to that, I was probably more in the high 6s. Okay. So it was still, I had still been moving it down, noticeably with the help of the CGM. But then once I was about a 6, it started to seem like, okay, this is more doable. And then, this is kind of interesting, actually. I started having A1Cs in the 5s pretty much all through the pregnancy so far. And then I think 2 or 3 months ago, I had one that was in the 4s. And I was like, wow, I'm really doing okay. But then I talked to my sister-in-law, who is a nurse, and she also has studied diabetes a lot. And she was saying, well, actually, the A1Cs during pregnancy start to get a little wonky because your blood volume increases so much that they might reflect a bit lower than you actually are.
So is that idea that it would literally dilute it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, that's great. Congratulations on your 4s.
She's like, but you didn't do that.
But don't get too swept off your feet.
Well, listen, I think you're making a strong argument here for staying pregnant your whole life till you can get a girl. Right? I mean, if your A1C is going to stay 4.8, you might as well just keep chugging them out. You're not Catholic, are you?
No. And I pretty much was not even sure if I wanted to have one or, now we're thinking maybe we'll have 2, but it's just like, I'm not having more than 2 kids. I would have been happy having 0 kids, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. The other day, my wife said, it was a lot more fun when they were little. And I said, yes, it was.
I would think that it would start to be pretty fun again once they kind of get out of your hair and you can go travel and see the world.
If you care about them, it sucks as soon as they can think for themselves, if I'm being honest. Because now you have, being serious, now you have to, what it's like to have a relationship with your husband, right? And he's got ideas and you have ideas and you have to find a blend between them. Imagine if you were married to 2 other guys too, and you had to blend all 3 of their ideas together with yours. And one of them felt the same way about the other 3, and so did the other one. And everyone's just trying to and nobody wants chicken on the same night, I can tell you that much. And that stuff starts happening, and you're like, oh my God, do you remember when you could just say to them, hi, this is chicken. Shut up and eat it.
Okay.
They'd go,
I see.
Okay. And then you'd say, hey, I thought today we'd go to grandmom's house and go swimming. And everybody'd go, okay. Not one of them would go, no, I have plans. And the other one would say, I don't want to swim. And then you just go, wait, what? And why am I incorporating your thoughts into my life? And then before you know it, and then you're trying to save money to send them to college. And then you start thinking, oh God, what if I die? How are they going to take care of themselves? So now you're taking every extra dollar you have and sticking it somewhere. And
then when you say things like that, I just really feel like, why am I moving back to the United States where college costs an arm and a leg when I could raise my kids in Slovenia and they would have college built in for free and get paid a stipend while they're in college.
Yes. Well, you can thank my son's college bills for the veracity in which I make this podcast. So there are days I get up and I'm like, I don't really, but here we go. And I'm doing this. And it's not that I don't love making the podcast. I don't want to say that. I'm just saying I might take a day off once in a while if it wasn't for the pressure of just making money to make money so that you can do this thing and then have money, then have my son come home and tell me that class was a waste of time. And then I think about how much I paid for it and I'm just it sends a chill through your spine.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
It is a weird, I mean, I have 4 brothers and we all have gone to college to some degree or another. And it's crazy to think about when you start doing the math on how much does one course cost and then how many classes are in that course. And then, so if you're sick one day and you don't go to the lecture, like you don't want to do that math, you know, it's like,
no, I have already. I know you don't want to. Yeah. My son was telling me about a friend the other day. He's like, oh, he's taken one class virtually. Like a lot of kids, like my son skipped this semester completely. He said that virtual learning was so terrible. He's like, I'm just going to skip a semester, cross my fingers for COVID getting better and go back in the fall. And, but he's got a friend who's taking one class and they're excited that it's such an easy class. He doesn't have to go to the class. And I was like, I bet his parents aren't excited about that news. You know, oh no, he's going to get a great grade. I'm like, will he learn anything? He goes, no, I don't think so. And I was like, then I'm not certain what's happening then.
Yeah.
You know, other than what I mentioned earlier, which is everybody's just trying to achieve, to move, and nobody learns anything.
Yeah.
You know,
I have to say, I'm definitely struggling with that mental shift a little bit as I'm taking these Slovenian language classes, because it really doesn't matter at all what grade you get. And I was always a little bit of a nervous A student kind of person.
Yeah.
And
well, let me remind you that Nuf means 9.
Yeah. But, you know, the point is not whether or not you're good or not. You know, the point is that you're learning the language so that you can freaking speak the language in the country that you're in, you know, speak with my husband's grandma. Like, this is the point.
Yep.
So I'm really having to do like a mental shift.
When Cole left for school, I said, listen, you have to keep your GPA high enough to keep your money, because he's getting money for a number of different reasons. I said, you need a GPA high enough to hold that money. You lose that money, you're coming home. So there's that. But after that, you don't need a 4.0. What I need you to do is leave college understanding something, like having a grasp of something. Like when Arden said to us she wanted to go to fashion school, I was like, or at least she'll come out with like a demonstrative like thing that she knows how to do. And then I found out that it's much cheaper. And I was like, well, then right on. This is definitely the way you should go.
Yeah, but it's a usable skill. It's, you know. Until
she said, could I go in London or France? And then I was like, oh, who the hell's going to pay for that? I was like, I don't know. That seems expensive to me. But
maybe take a year off and do something with fashion, raise some money.
Get a job. That'd be nice. Yeah. But anyway, that's it. You're going to get them. It's going to be the cutest little, greatest thing in the world. And you're going to have all these high-minded ideas about shaping them. And then one day he's going to turn like 12 or 13 and disappear into his bedroom for like 3 or 4 years. And that'll make you super sad. And then he'll get a bunch of friends. And then you're going to be thinking a lot about, I hope he doesn't drink too much or drink at all or do drugs. Then you'll worry for that for about 4 or 5 years. And then you'll think, oh, I hope that girl doesn't stick because she's really not the right one. I don't think. You'll worry about that. And then he'll leave and you'll feel abandoned, and that'll be it. Yay, you. You're going to have a great time. No.
The child rearing progression.
Meanwhile, it's the best thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, that is nice to hear. I spend more time thinking about diabetes by far than I ever have, truly ever, at any other time in the last 9 months. And so I haven't spent as much time maybe thinking about how it is actually to be rearing children. And, you know, once he's here, what will that be like? And
they yell a lot, and then they're going to like pee on you and stuff like that. And throw
up.
It's about like that. One eventually you get to this really cool spot where you're just like, oh, it's happening. And they start moving, and like when the crawling happens and everything, it's all, listen, I can talk about it and sound cynical all you want, but it's the best thing I've ever done was raising my kids, and it's absolutely fantastic. I said to Kelly the other day, it's interesting, isn't it? People who are, we were talking about somebody, you're not supposed to talk about people, but we were talking about people, and these people are having marital trouble, and it doesn't look like it's going to go well. And I said, it's interesting, isn't it? Like when you're together, everybody complains about how much it sucks, you know, and being married is hard and all this stuff. But people who are alone complain about being alone. Married people never say, I'm glad I'm not alone. Alone people never say, you know, I'm glad I'm not married. It's always like the thing I have is bad.
Yeah.
And so you have to, at some point, just realize that everything comes with complications. And
Yeah.
You know, being ready for what they are, I don't think is bad. Like, I think that my explanation could sound cynical to people, but I don't think of it as cynically. I just think of it as, like, reasonably speaking, it's about what might happen, you know, along the way, and being ready for it's good.
And you said something that I kind of want to say something, but it's not exactly on topipic, but you made me think, one of the reasons that I got into listening to your podcast and actually just to give you a short background, I got into the podcast when I got pregnant, pretty much, because I was living in Slovenia and it's a different healthcare system here, and I didn't really know what to expect. And I just felt like I could use some support in general. And I looked for podcasts that might talk about diabetes and pregnancy. And then you had a three-part series.
Yeah.
And I think I listened to that one first. And then you also had one with Jenny Smith about pregnancy. And then I actually had purchased her book, and I didn't realize it was the same Jenny Smith.
That's funny.
And I've been reading her book, and I almost cried the other day because it was so accurate to my emotional experience during the 7th month of pregnancy. But anyway, did I lose my train of thought here? Oh, I was just going to say, then I started listening to some of the other episodes also. And some of the ones that caught my attention were ones about complications, people who are dealing with complications. And what I was realizing is that I have had fear of complications without wanting to do the whole thing of Google search gangrene, or I don't know, even as an occupational therapist, I've had patients who have amputated legs, and I'm helping them to work on their how to walk, how to be non-weight bearing in the meantime. And so I'm definitely flirting with this understanding, but it feels very something that I just don't want to dig into too much, very dark and scary.
Mm-hmm.
And once I realized that you have these episodes with these real people talking about their real complications and being willing to list kind of every complication under the sun and talk about how it affected them, but still be human, still be positive, still be experiencing their lives in a normal way, an accessible, open way, just made it all so much more approachable for me. And I think that, I value listening to the podcast for some pregnancy advice with diabetes. But I think this is probably the nicest thing that the podcast offered me, is just an opportunity to expose myself in a sort of safe setting to the complications, and then not be afraid of finding out more, not being so afraid of the outcomes. And they're not very likely to happen to me anyway. So it wasn't something that was I really need to look into this. But I tend to be a person who likes to know what's the worst case scenario.
Right.
So this is kind of a weird black hole of information for me, where I was I just don't need to know.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just pretend and just not look over there. Kind of.
Okay, my management has been good enough, so I don't need to.
Yeah. Sort of like complications are the old chair in the corner where you pile things, and you just and you walk into the room. You're like, isn't this part of the room terrific? Don't look over there. I understand, and I'm thrilled that it did that. I have to say that my understanding of how valuable that is for people, especially right in your age range, who have had diabetes for a certain amount of time, is becoming greater. I'm hearing from more people like you who are saying that. I don't know if it went out yet or not, but I interviewed somebody who I thought for certain was going to come on and talk about how they learned to help themselves, with insulin, and how it got them there. And then she just floored me by saying, I knew how to take care of myself. I just didn't do it. Mm-hmm. And she's like, and the podcast led me to want to take care of myself. And I never, I didn't imagine that part of it. And that's the part I kind of can't imagine it, because I don't have diabetes. I think that's the spot where I was going to say it hurts the show that I don't have type 1, but it turns out the people who come on filled in that need. So it's really lovely. I'm glad to hear. And Jenny, if that you almost cried reading the book, will make Jenny very happy. Meaning that the
I feel embarrassed. I don't have the book right here because I'm forgetting the name of the co-author, and she also I connect to her as well.
Ginger, absolutely. No, I 100% know. But it's so weird that you heard Jenny on a podcast and we're reading a book that she helped write and didn't know it was the same person. That's really cool.
Well, because I just, when I got pregnant, I was like, I'm just going to order any book. And it turns out there are not so many books out there for type 1 diabetics and pregnancy.
I think on our schedule coming up, Jenny and I are going to talk about postpartum.
Oh, cool. I think we're doing it soon so that I can listen to it.
Well, I will hurry up just for you and get it done. No, I think we're doing a pro tip on postpartum soon, which will be lucky for you because I won't be saying much. I'll just be making stupid pregnancy references whenever jokes pop into my head while she's explaining stuff. So,
nice. Yeah. I also just talked to a type 1 diabetic who really amazed me. She's a wife of a coworker of my brother, so not really a connection of mine, but she's a type 1 diabetic who had twins and a couple years ago, and then had another baby after that. And so just having twins is already a very high risk kind of situation. And so I'm kind of like fishing for what are all the other tips for after you give birth that you can take care of. She said, oh yeah, you're always going to be low blood sugar when you're breastfeeding. So have pots of gummy bears or jelly beans around in the house. And I think I saw actually that's also listed in Jenny Smith's book.
Okay. She just said to me a couple months ago, she's like, we need to do, because it's interesting how the pro tip series started. Like Jenny, I know you've heard her a lot on the show and a lot of people have, but Jenny was just a guest. She was a person who came on once and came on again. And I always thought like, I really love the way she talks about diabetes. And so when there was this day where I thought I want to do a pro tip series to like kind of take the bigger ideas out of the podcast and put them just in one place, I thought I need somebody else with me to balance it out. And I asked her, she was really kind to do it. And I think I sent her 10 topics. And I was like, don't worry. I know this is going to be a lot and I appreciate it, but it's only going to be these 10 topics. And then I won't bother you anymore. And then, I was like, well, what about this one? And then she's like, also, we should be talking about this too. And then before I knew it, she just told me privately one day, she's like, I love coming on your podcast. And I was awesome. Okay. I said, well, do you want to keep doing this? And she's like, sure. So she comes on. She's on my schedule.
You guys have a great dynamic, and I feel like you come at it from different perspectives. She has sort of a bit of an academic approach, but she's still very accessible. I don't think she makes it overly complicated.
I agree.
And then you have a very real life experiential approach.
Yeah.
And also it's digestible for people.
Right.
And so I think you balance each other out really well. And then you have kind of a nice rapport as well. So it's perfect.
I swear to you, like when it got done, I've said to her privately, I was like, I wish that this whole thing made enough money that I could just say, Jenny, I'm going to hire you. And like, let's just make this podcast forever, because she's so like perfect, but obviously that's not how it works. And I've recently found, and hopefully this will keep going, Erica, who's a therapist who I have a really great vibe with, and I've recorded a couple more things with her. I'm starting to find people that fit into some certain spots. Kim came on the other day and talked about different, oh my God, a very simple word just fell out of my head. Wow, don't get old. My God. So when people do sciencey stuff to try to figure out if drugs do things, those are called
trials. No, I actually just listened to this. I think I just listened to this episode
with Kim. Yeah, and we got done, and I said to her, I was like, you can do this again. I was like, whenever you have more like stuff to fill in for people, like let me know. Because she just had a good way of going through it, and I was comfortable with her. That ends up being the key sometimes, is that I just need to be comfortable with the person I'm talking to.
Yeah,
like a one-off doesn't matter. I can talk to anybody one time, but there are people I've had, I think, great interviews with that I wouldn't want to do it again with them.
Yeah.
But there are some people when I'm just like, wow, we could do this again. This would be okay.
Yeah. She also was very well informed, I would say. And I was also thinking about whether or not to forward this episode to my family, but I don't want to like bombard them,
Plus, if they ignore you twice while you're pregnant, it's going to start getting to you. Your emotions will start building up, and you'll be like, nobody cares what I think. And
one of my brothers has 3 kids, so it's like, okay, he gets a write-off for whatever.
Yeah, he's busy.
And they're all boys, and they're running around, and they're at home because it's COVID.
It's absolutely getting crazy. My son is at the end of his wits. If there's a wits end, my son found it. Like it's been enough, but he takes the COVID thing seriously. So he's still doing what he's doing. And I think rightfully so. But the point is that he needs to go do something. And then it snowed here and we were like, wait, like I can't even walk in the yard now. Like I lost that, it's really terrible.
Oh yeah. That was really terrible for people in California. Sorry, short thing. People in California this last summer, there were a lot of wildfires during the COVID season. Yeah. And so people were like, okay, don't go out to restaurants or public places ever. And also don't leave your house at all because the air quality is so poor.
Right.
And I think I know a lot of people started really having some emotional difficulties at that time.
It was too locked down. You're just literally being like I said the other day, I honest to God was standing in my kitchen and I thought, oh my God, there's that wall in the living room again. Like I just looked up and I was like, there's that wall. It looks exactly the same as it looked the last time I looked at it. And I like my home and I'm starting to get angry at it. I want to, and I can't imagine how he feels. He lost, like I said, he lost school this semester. He might have Hashimoto's. There's side effects from it that he's still getting through, like as the medicine's coming online, and it's limited his ability to work out. He's a college athlete. So everything that he does is just sort of like got took from him at once. Not that it hasn't happened to everybody, but
but that's a lot to take on at one time.
Yeah. It's just too much. So, and tomorrow's his birthday.
Happy birthday. Are you going to see him?
Oh, he's here. He just.
Oh yeah, he's here. Yeah.
But the point is like having a birthday during COVID is not easy to do to begin with, and you're already bummed out about other stuff, and you can't be around your friends, and you're 20. You're 21, and I'm going to give you a cupcake. It's not exactly
21, huh?
Yeah, the whole thing. It's just bad. He's having a bad couple of months. He really is. But
my nephew just turned 20. And it was kind of similar. Like he's not at home right now, but he was like, yeah, we're not going to do that much. And thinking, well, at least he's not turning 21 because that's the one where you really want to go out drinking with your friends.
I don't think my son's much of a drinker, but there's things he would definitely, I think there's things he definitely wants to be doing that he's not going to be doing. And a lot of the guys from his team are in a vacation house together and he's not there right now because of what he's going through. So it's just really terrible. Like I've never felt worse for him specifically. And he is one of those people for the first 20 years of his life, like nothing ever went wrong. Like I think he fractured his wrist once when he was 15. But other than that, like he's athletic and strong and excels at things and has never really had something push him backwards like this before. So it's really something. Hey, I'm sorry. We skipped over the part where I wanted to ask you, and we're up on an hour, but I still want to ask you.
No problem.
You're in Slovenia. You have nothing to do. Just calm down.
Yeah. And I'm like hardly, it's really true.
You're like, I could do this all day. Don't worry about it. But no, you've been great. And I enjoyed the conversation, but I wanted to ask you specifically if you can point to what you did to go from high 6s to low 6s, from low 6s to into the 5s. Like, do you know what happened?
Yeah. Okay, I would attribute a lot of the success to the Dexcom specifically. But it also just becomes, I think it's just a matter of attention more so than anything else. I didn't want diabetes to be such a large focus in my life for my whole life that I've had it pretty much. I mean, I was never ignoring it and I was taking good enough care, but then when I got pregnant, it became a really large part of the focus. And so now I've been you have made jokes a number of times. Like I can't imagine being a person who's counting every carb and weighing everything. And I will just add that over here, they use the metric system. So I'm starting to get really good at well, okay, I'm getting better anyway at guesstimating how many grams something weighs,
Right.
and like baking with a scale. Like I'm usually using a scale to weigh out how many grams and what's the carb percentage. And I've started taking into consideration fats and proteins, which I wasn't paying very much attention to before. So I think it's just a lot of attention to small things.
See, I'm always waiting for somebody to say something that's a little different so it can resonate with people listening. But I have to say that I think that those pro tip episodes are so valuable because I did boil it down to like what it is. And it's just, you got to stop your blood sugar from getting high and pre-bolus and pay attention. Get your insulin right. There's not really, isn't it weird to think now from where you came from that it really isn't much more than that? Because didn't it feel like
I was pre-bolusing before, and but just sort of less consistently. The stakes were just lower, I think.
Yeah. So you're doing it for the baby. Now here's the question: are you going to do it for yourself after the baby comes out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a cool. It's maybe a more difficult question than it seems, because of course my answer is yes.
I'll definitely do that. Yeah. And then that kid will be 2 months old and you won't sleep for a couple nights in a row.
Hopefully I can actually back myself up and hold my own and not kind of let myself slide. I do feel like I've learned a lot, and I feel like it's easier than I thought it was going to be. Good. Okay. If you had asked me 3 months ago, it would be really mind-boggling to hear myself saying that now, because 3 months ago it felt so difficult. But I'm learning to adapt to the changes, and I'm learning a lot. I mean, it's just like all these little small things that are not so difficult to do. They're just habits that when you form them, then you can adapt more and more easily. And I think for you also, it's probably hard to imagine how people could possibly not take care of themselves. But so much of the time, it's just, do you have the habits? Do you have the knowledge? Well, in the other order, do you have the knowledge first, and then do you have the habits built?
Right. I don't believe that people ignore their health on purpose. I think they don't know what to do. And then they start getting responses back from their health that tells them this is untenable, and then they give up. And that's it. I don't have tools. It's going wrong. I tried again. It didn't happen. This is frustrating. That's where people come up with, this is just diabetes. This must just be what it is, and there's nothing I can do about it. And it's completely understandable to reach that spot. I probably would have too. Like, I think all the time, like, if this happened to me and not to Arden, I don't imagine I'd be very good at this. Like, it was the desire to help Arden that helped me push through all the stuff that I didn't understand that was happening, And
now you have so much knowledge. It's like, it would be hard you can't unknow everything that you know now. It would be kind of crazy to imagine somebody doing something like this person you were talking about, who said actually she knew how to take care of herself, but she just had to make a mental shift to do it. And I think that can be the part of the habit formation. Like,
I agree with you too. And you have to, it's sort of like anything else. Like, if you see it getting away from you, you have to draw a line in the sand somewhere in the future and say, all right, if we get to that, I have to stop myself. But at this point now, mismanagement for Arden means more of like a 5.8, 5.9 A1C. And that I do attribute to what you're saying. Just the idea that, like, and the podcast has really helped me with it, because I had all this information coming in, but there just can be no doubt that talking about it just made it stronger. Like, it feels like maybe I had this strength, but now it's just multiplied over and over again. And it's from talking to people. Like, now messing up looks more like a 5.9 at any point. And I don't even think about A1C in 3 months anymore. Like, now there's apps. Like, I look in SugarMate or you use Dexcom Clarity, and you say, all right, where have I been in the last 10 days? All right, in the last 10 days, this has happened. Or sometimes you look, and like, for the last 2 days, she's been a 6.2, but for the last 10 days, she's been a 5.5. And you just say, okay, like, there's a reason for that, hormones or whatever. And you just kind of can't, it's just like you're driving You know what I mean? Like, you know how eventually you've been driving for so long, you don't know you're driving anymore. Like you've been doing it for so many years. You get in the car goes, you don't hit things, you don't come close to having an accident. Sometimes you're not even looking up. You feels like, like it's just, I know how to do this now. It just works.
Completely autopilot.
Yeah. And I think that happens for people eventually with diabetes. It's just very hard to believe that it's going to happen in the beginning when someone like me says, don't worry, diabetes is always going to be hard, but you're going to get so good at it that one day it's going to feel easy.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, of course. So. And I will say it helps to have some, like the podcast can also offer for people a little reason to kind of learn about something new or try something different or adapt so you don't get too autopilot. Ish.
Yeah. Well, you talked about it earlier. Like you kind of age through it to the point where you're just like, it's not the right way to do things anymore. And this is a constant conversation. People are always going to come in and we're going to talk about things that are newer. I mean, I have every hope that maybe even by the time this goes up, Arden will be using Omnipod 5 and that'll be a new way to talk about diabetes, right? Like, and people can keep.
I'm sort of hoping to get an Omnipod. So one small point about Slovenian healthcare versus US healthcare, if I can just list a pro and a con real quick, because I've been meaning to, I'm making a mental note of things I don't want to forget to say.
Please.
So I actually had the G6 Dexcom in California, but they don't have it here.
You have
so
the 5.
I had it for less than a year or maybe just over a year in California before I came here. And then I had to switch back to the G4, which I had never had before.
Oh, wow.
And it's less accurate. And you have to have a receiver that you carry with you instead of having it on your phone.
Right.
And I don't know, it's bulkier.
Yeah.
And just, these are things that don't really matter. Like when it's the idea of having a Dexcom or not having a Dexcom, I'm very thankful.
Right.
But it's a weird situation that I also can't get an Omnipod here because unless I somehow managed to get one in California and have somebody send it, which there's no way I could do without insurance.
Right.
So there are some real limiting factors about just being in a country that's not kind of the basis of where things start a lot of the time.
Yeah. I've spoken to wealthy people who live in I think Saudi Arabia, and they'll get on a plane and fly here and buy stuff cash and then fly back with it. Like that's how far they have to go to get the insulin pump that they want or the CGM.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, but you're proving something really. I mean, to have your A1C like this through pregnancy with the G4 really is a good wake up call for people who are, always complaining this, where's the 7? When's the next one coming out? You got some really good technology already,
Yeah. And, it works. It's not quite as accurate, but It's still pretty accurate. And I have the, not Freestyle. What is it? The One Touch Contour Next.
Contour Next One.
Yeah, thank you. Which I have this pretty good blood sugar tester, and they're usually fairly close together.
Yeah.
But this is how I know that this one is less accurate than the previous one.
Because
and the calibrations is the other thing that's a big difference, right? With the G6, you don't have to do the calibration. So I got really spoiled.
Yeah, I hear you. But you're saying you can tell the difference between the 6 and the 4, the Dexcom, because you have the Contour Next One meter and you know how the accuracy of it goes, which you can learn more about at contournext.com/juicebox. I don't usually do that, but it felt like it fits right there. So
it was very smooth.
Thank you. Oh yeah. Not ham-fisted at all. So
that's a con I wanted to mention, but a pro of being here for sure, definitely, is that when I first got here, they said, okay, we're going to just run some routine tests because you're a type 1 diabetic. And they did a circulation check with put some bands on my wrists and ankles and checked how my circulation was in my extremities. Yeah. They did an EKG to check kind of my heart rhythms. They did some basic eye exams that everything was covered by insurance. Just a lot more preventative measures were taken. And they said this is routine. They do it for all their type 1 diabetics.
Right.
And of course, they're like, yeah, it's because we care. And as if the US doctors don't care. They just do it for the money. But it is true that there's one payer source here. Mm-hmm. And so when there's complications, the same payer source is paying for the recovery, for the transplants, for the negative outcomes, dialysis.
They're trying to,
it's huge.
It's cost cut. They're literally trying to stop you from getting sick so that it doesn't cost them more money down the road. That's kind of
the individual doctors in Slovenia and the US care.
Of course. Yeah. But the system's set up to, one system's set up to stop you from getting sick and the other system's set up to take care of you once you get sick.
Yeah. Exactly. And in the US, I'm an occupational therapist, so I've seen it a lot. I've seen patients who they're deemed non-compliant and they're kicked down the road to the next higher level of care. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of crazy to think about how our system is set up, that if somebody is having higher and higher level complications, you can push them down the road and somebody else has to pay for it at that point.
Yeah. No, it's not. And here you're getting a better thing. Now, yeah. Listen, I think we should be more worried about preventative than we are about just, but it's a very American way, right? Like, it's like getting on a bull. Like, I wonder how long I can sit on this thing before it'll throw me. Like, I wonder how long I can live, ignore my health until like the buzzer goes off and then I'll pay attention. That's sort of how it feels, right? And I don't know that that's not a human thing, but we definitely support it here with the way things are set up.
And again, in the US, we're all very used to it. So it doesn't seem weird at all. Like, it actually seems weird to me to come to Slovenia. I'm like, how can you guys all just take this for granted? It's so amazing. And people here are complaining about the healthcare system. And they have different complaints, but they really don't appreciate it. Yeah. People are not thrilled about their healthcare system here.
Listen, it would be nice if people appreciated things, but at the same time, I think some of that complaining is what continues to push stuff forward. You know what I mean? Like, it makes people go, all right, we'll make it better. You know what I mean? And then you do, and you do, and you do. It's hard. I think it's easier macro to see the success and how things are improving in a lot of different ways. But when you're right there in it, you're just like, what the hell? Like, do a better job for me right now. I think they both, there's a way to think about both things where you could be happy, but not a lot. I
totally agree.
Yeah, not a lot of people get the opportunity to step back. All right. Well, is there anything else that we didn't say?
Okay. Yes. Sorry. There's one tiny thing that's really haunting me. I messed up my nephew's birthday. I just want to, because he's definitely going to listen to this. I just want to say, I'm pretty sure he is turning 21 this year and that I messed that up before. So I apologize.
I can't believe that was the last thing, but okay. What's his first name?
Anyway, sorry. Otherwise, no, I think we covered it.
What's your nephew's first name?
His name is Nick.
All right, well, Nick, happy birthday. Whether you're 20 or 21, your aunt apparently cares about you, and you got to cut her a break because she has something that they call placenta brain.
I was just gonna say, can I get off on pregnancy brain on this one?
Totally let that go. I would totally let that go, 100%. All right, well, listen, you were absolutely delightful. I'm super excited that we did this. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you really for having me. It's been really nice. And I do really appreciate having the podcast out there and during the pregnancy. It's made a difference for me. So
I appreciate knowing that. And I'm thrilled, honestly. Anytime I hear that it's been helpful for people, it makes me feel a little like jello-y inside. So then I get embarrassed. Well, I know you must be thinking, my goodness, Scott, you've done it again. Another amazing episode of the Juicebox Podcast. I agree. Huge thanks to Katy for coming on the show and sharing her story. I'd also like to thank touchedbytype1.org for their support and the Contour Next One blood glucose meter, which you can learn more about at contournext.com/juicebox. Really dig in. Figure out if you've got the best meter. And check out touchedbytype1.org. Ooh, did I forget to say? T1dexchange.org/juicebox. Go take that survey. When you do, you'll be supporting people with type 1 diabetes and the show. You must be a U.S. resident who has type 1 or is the caregiver of a person with type 1. I have a little update here for you. I got a lot of pictures of a very cute baby. Anyway, she ended up having a very healthy baby boy at 39 plus 4 weeks. And he had no low blood sugars, and all of his organs and lungs were fully developed. Yay. That being said, likely because I have diabetes and also because the baby was big to begin with. Oh, wow. Baby was 10 pounds, 6 ounces and delivered by C-section after 5 hours of laboring. Ooh, and not dilating more than 3 centimeters. Ew, boo. Hospital was actually great. They were when I clearly communicated that I wanted to manage my own diabetes, and my blood sugars were between 3.5 and 5 during the entire laboring process. She says that she forgot to turn off her temp basal during the surgery and ended up going high for several hours. She also thinks that might have been some adrenaline. The only funky thing she says is I was in the hospital for 4 days after the surgery, and the standard in Slovenia, that's a standard in Slovenia for hospitals after C-section, and they put her on a type 2 diabetic meal plan, she said, which was a bit goofy. Otherwise, I want to share just a couple of my pictures of my guy. Thanks for doing the podcast with me. Now I'm still figuring out my new basal rates and insulin to carb ratios a little bit and having them pretty much figured out. I have to say that I remind myself often about what you were saying during the podcast when you asked how my control will be after birth. The question is motivating me to ensure that I maintain as tight a control as possible now in these months, despite my new and crazy schedule. Okay, that's it. Another baby not named Scott in the books.